Okay, thank you very much. We are now set and the presentation is now showing. I hope you all can see the presentation that is being shared. Welcome to the first webinar in the series of the SADC Innovation and Investment Challenge webinars, which are brought to you by FinMark Trust. My name is Dumisani Dube, and I'm the head of Applications Lab at FinMark Trust, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. So just as a way of introduction, I'll give a brief background on why we're doing this work. So poverty remains as one of $1 a day. And innovation is crucial to the region's economic development and key contributor to enhance our economic growth, job creation, and the alleviation of poverty. And in support of this, FinMark Trust has launched the SADC Innovation and Investment Challenge to lay the foundation on which to develop enabling innovation ecosystems that support the design of products and services that meet the needs of the underserved and unserved individuals. Increase the availability of meaningful employment opportunities, and in particular, targeting the vulnerable groups such as women and youth. B, we are looking at improving the access and usage of basic services and lead to a more inclusive and responsible financial sector. So with this in mind, the SADC Innovation Challenge involves participants from 7 countries across the SADC region, namely South Africa, Malawi, Zambia, can face the competition to include the other 8 countries that are not included in this phase. So the aim is to support early stage tech-enabled innovations, key development challenges facing specifically digitizing the savings groups. And today we will hear more on that topic. And the 4th thematic area is access to service. So today's webinar session to our presenter. And if you have any question, please use the question and answer function on Zoom. So type out your question and we'll capture it, and our presenter will try as much as possible to address your questions in the time available. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Petronella, who is our gender specialist at FinMark Trust. So Petronella, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dumi. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this Innovation Challenge webinar on women and savings. My name is Petronella, and I'm a gender specialist. I'll also be your thematic mentor. So feel free to ask any questions and I will address them at the end. And if you don't have any questions for now, you can still ask them on Slack, and again, I will do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. Now, the main purpose of this webinar is to really help you understand the problem statement. And I'm going to do this by introducing key concepts relating to savings groups, which will include looking at the different savings groups models and also looking at the management structure of these groups and some of the benefits the groups offer, as well as some of the inefficiencies or issues. And I'm hoping that at the end of the session, you will have a clear understanding of savings groups and how they function, and you will be able to demonstrate how technology can best optimize the benefits of savings groups and also tackle some of the issues through your innovative solutions. Now, I'm going to start off by going through the problem statement, which is women, young, old, all over Africa have invented the concept of saving within their own networks for a shared purpose. Now, the groups are formed with members of the same community where money is saved into a central fund. However, they face the risk of financial mismanagement through poorly kept records. Now, your challenge is to create a platform which allows for peer-to-peer savings, tracking and management of savings, as well as credit scoring without removing the social interactions of women. Now, to give you a bit of a background of this problem, the illustration that you see there shows FinScope results on financial inclusion or how people in SADC access finance. And financial inclusion means having access to affordable financial services to meet one's savings, credit, and insurance needs. Now, financial inclusion is measured by calculating the proportion of people using financial products or services. And by looking at those statistics there, it is quite clear that there has been a slight increase in financially included people in the SADC region from 66% in 2015 to 68% in 2018. And if you further really look at the statistics, you will notice that this increase is driven by non-bank formal, probably due to increasing financial services for mobile network operators and insurers, and also from informal services, which shows you that despite the exclusion from formal banking, many people have actually figured out how on their own ways to sort of transact and save money. And if you further look at the data, you will notice that there is an increase in numbers of people who are participating in formal savings group. And the majority of these are women, which is why this challenge is specifically targeted towards women. Now, one might be wondering, what are these informal savings groups? So this can be described as social organizations which are formed to help community members save money for a specific purpose. And I'm sure you've seen in your communities that they have different purposes. Some of them are there to pay school fees and to pay for uniforms, some to replace some tools or equipment, and in some cases to even invest in opportunities which are potentially profitable. For example, purchasing a cow because they want to sell the milk, or maybe starting a small business. Now, the groups have different names and missions across different countries, also across different regions. And a savings group is normally comprised of between 15 and 25 members who save regularly at a frequency which is determined by the group. Now, there are many ways to save in a group, but the simplest and most common model is known as the Rotating Savings and Credit Association. Now, the members of this group meet at a predetermined period, which could be every day, every week or month, and they contribute a predetermined amount into a group fund. And at each meeting, the money that is collected is then given to one member. Now, once that member has received their lump sum, they must still continue to contribute, but will not receive another lump sum until all the other members have had a chance to receive it once. And the group predetermines the rotation of the recipient of the sum, and also ensures that each participant will eventually receive their large payout. When the last member has received their lump sum, the group may decide to start on a new cycle or to stop saving. Another form of savings groups is known as accumulated savings and credit associations, where again, like the Rotating Savings and Credit Association, the members decide on the regular contributions and they put that money together. But unlike the rotating savings, this money does not immediately go to an individual member, but rather they then give out loans to other group members or to other third parties. And after a certain period of time, which is often between 6 months and a year, the group fund together with its proceeds of interest are then paid back to its original members. Now, savings groups not only provide the members with opportunity to save frequently in small amounts and to access credit, but they also provide some sort of social capital to the group members. And an example is the case of South Africa, where it has one of the most developed banking sectors in the SADC region. And 90% of the adult population has access to formal services. These people also have formal savings accounts, yet they participate in informal savings groups because of the social structure which it provides, and that can never be realized by saving at a bank. So the group sort of creates disciplined savings where participation in the group forces the members to set goals and to meet them each month. And failure to do so comes with repercussions. For example, interest on loans, negative social standing, which therefore creates some sort of incentive in meeting goals. And this maintains discipline, which is much more difficult as compared to it being an individual. Again, besides this, there's also the social functions or events which these groups host. And because the groups are often formed with trusted friends, family, and community members, it sort of forms a perfect excuse to get together and to socialize. Now, the group that you see there is a savings group, which my mother belongs to. And from the time I was growing, we used to see these women come and go. And when they would come to our house, we knew that we were going to have a party, and we knew that my mother was receiving a lump sum. But one of the things that used to happen is that they used to sit down and discuss some of the issues that were happening in their communities. And this helped them to sort of strengthen their relationships and also help them to sort of tackle some of the issues that were happening in the communities. Now, besides the normal savings group, there is other savings groups which are NGO-led or facilitated by NGOs. And these then sort of have an added advantage of having financial education, because these facilitators normally come up with financial education modules that look at how to start a savings group, that look at how they can come up with a constitution, as well as resolving conflicts. And in that, these women are also exposed to budgeting and planning and debt management, how to deal with cash flow issues, and also on safety on money. And sometimes they have the NGO bring in the bank to advertise their products and to tell them on some of the interests that are there. And the group can then decide if it works, then they can go with that, or also to look at another option, which is using the money box. And apart from that, they also taught on how to increase their income. And in terms of the management structure of these groups, it's normally made up of 5 positions, which usually includes the chairperson, secretary, treasurer, a collector or money box keeper, and some key keepers. Now, the role of the chairperson is to lead on discussions in meetings and facilitate them. And if this group has a bank account, they would also be a signatory at the bank. Then the secretary's responsibilities include taking on duties of the chairperson if they're not available or cannot attend a meeting, and also taking attendance at the meetings and setting the agenda of meetings. Then there's also the treasurer, whose role is to keep detailed records of all contributions that have been made and to oversee the collector. They are also a signatory if there is a bank account. Now, the collector's responsibilities are quite obvious. These collect contributions from each member and update the savings groups, and also report on what was collected together with the treasurer. In some cases where there is no bank account, there would be some key keepers, and these are usually 3 members who keep keys to the money box. And that is what a typical money box would look like. It would have 3 locks which have keys that are kept by 3 trusted members of this group. And this is just to safeguard some of these savings. And apart from that, the toolbox also has a member share book. And this member share book would have the different shares that were bought per meeting by the member. And usually at the back of this book, there would be a listing of the loan amounts and also the interests charged and how much is still owing. Now, in terms of record keeping, there are three main methods that are used to keep records, and one of them is memorization. And this is effective with groups with very low literacy levels and requires every member to remember the amount of money in the box at the end of each meeting, also to remember the amount that they owe if they have some loans, and also the due date. Again, because it is by memorization, it also requires every member to remember what the next person to them owes and the due date for that. And in cases where there is a member passbook, this would be that image that I just showed you, where there are some stamps on shares that were bought, and again, a listing of the loans. And besides that, there's also a central ledger, which contains the attendance records for all the people that attended meetings, and also include savings and loan balances for all the group members. Now, when it comes to the details of record keeping, the rotating savings group model requires recording of amounts collected, attendance at the meeting, the member contributions, and the lump sum recipient. Now, the table that you see there is an example of a rotating savings group record book. And for simplification, I have only included 3 members who meet once a week. And it shows how much each member contributed and who received the lump sum. So you'll notice that on the first date, and this rotating savings group is obviously weekly, it shows that there were 3 members, Petronella, Pathu, and Abel. They contributed 100 each. So at the end of that week, there would be 300. In the second week, and still in that week, that lump sum would then go to Pathu. And then in the second week, again, they will all contribute, and then the money goes to Petronella. In the third week, then that money goes to Abel. Now, the next slide is going to show what record keeping would look like in an accumulated savings group. And that table shows an example of record keeping for two meetings. And for simplicity, I've only included 3 members. But in real life, if this group is made up of 22 members, then we would be seeing the deposits that were made by all the 22 members and the member savings at the end of each meeting. So it shows you the starting balance before the meeting starts, and at the beginning there would be no money, and then the ending balance at the end of the meeting, because all of them are contributing and not distributing or sharing, they would have a total deposit of all their contributions. And then in the second meeting, it would be again them contributing the same amounts, and then the ending balance would be an addition of the first meeting and the other meeting. So if this group had a cycle of 10 weeks, it would then have about 3,000, yeah, it would have 3,000. And then if, say, Petronella asks for a loan of 300, there would be need to have another book or to have another section where there would be loans. And usually if it's a membership book, it would be at the back of the book. And Petronella would still need to contribute their weekly amounts and still pay back the loan on the interest which would have been agreed on. Now, at each meeting, the group must count how much cash they have in hand, and it must also keep record of all the people that have loans and how much they would have paid. So imagine looking at this. This is just for Petronella. So at each meeting, all of these things are discussed. So for Petronella, we would have to figure out the date when the loan was issued, also the interest that was charged, the payments that Petronella needs to make, also the payments that she actually made, and also include in some cases a late fee, say she fails to pay. And then at the end, there would be a remaining loan amount. So imagine how tedious this is for 22 people that have loans, there would need to be records that are taken, and everybody has to sit down to make sure that this is exactly what is happening and this is what this person owes. And to still have that central ledger that tells them the balances that, okay, this is how much we have contributed, but from these loans, this is how much people are still owing to us, or members are still owing to us, and this is our balance at the end of the day. So you can see just by looking at that table that record keeping can actually be time consuming and it can be inaccurate. And to make sure that this process is easier, we're hoping that you will come up with a solution that sort of captures all these details, but in a much more accurate way. Now, another issue with savings groups is the issue of inconvenience. Now, physical presence is required, and this is not always feasible. Think about proximity issues where it's probably a rural location where this savings group is. The distances that these people must travel to get to a meeting are quite large, and it sort of gives a bit of an inconvenience. And say there is a disaster, maybe there's a flood, it means that this savings group must stop operating and then only resume when there's no longer any risk. And apart from this, I'm sure you saw the money box. This money box is kept by one member and the keys by other members, but it poses still a risk because this money could be stolen or misplaced or even lost. And in a savings group that we visited a month ago, this savings group was opened, I think, started operating in 2016-17, but already they had 3 cases where the money box was stolen. And in most cases, it was a child at the member who kept the money box who actually broke into the box. And this forces now that member to then say, oh, maybe we should look at a much more easier way to deal with the situation, and I pay back all these amounts. So there is a security risk when it comes to keeping the money at home. Now, a promising area of innovation which is related to savings group is the emergence of these applications that digitize group records and procedures and transactions, which are your digital savings groups. And these automate procedures and increase the group's transparency and also increase efficiency. And I'm sure you saw that given potential errors which are related to manual record keeping, savings group could actually benefit from using digital record keeping applications, which is one of the things that we're hoping that you will come up with a very innovative solution that will address the issue of record keeping. Now, besides this, as savings groups grow, it becomes necessary for them to link up with other financial institutions. Now, imagine that this saving group has done so well, and maybe they have at the end of the cycle, say what, 20,000 US dollars. It would be not safe to have that money actually sitting at somebody's house. It is a safety thing, and as amounts get larger, the security becomes more important. And also as these amounts get larger, it becomes necessary to have some functionality for depositing and withdrawing of funds. Now, what we need you to do is to sort of demonstrate how technology can assist in linking up with other institutions. For example, how can the savings group then link up with a bank or with an institution that can even provide more loans to this bank? So what we would expect to see is some sort of credit scoring that shows the records and the patterns when it comes to borrowing of this person, and then how this can then contribute to them getting a loan. And in some cases, it would also be even better if we can see if these savings groups can actually borrow to other groups, or if they can offer some credit to other groups. So it's 2 things: looking at how the saving group can access credit externally, and also looking at how the group can provide access to credit to other groups. And now, given that savings groups given the ability of savings groups to smooth consumption, to protect and grow assets, and also the way it increases social cohesion and develop decision-making skills, these groups can actually be used as a venue for addressing other challenges that are beyond finance that these members could face. And it could be a venue again to help achieve objectives in other sectors such as agriculture, health, and maybe education, because we know that it is a model that is currently working in our SADC region. I think an additional plus point would be for you to look in your country and see if there's a specific issue. In this example, I'm showing maybe how malaria outbreaks could be addressed through these savings groups. So as you're developing your applications, also think of how savings groups can foster and support access to basic medical services for its members, maybe against malaria. So say your end goal is improving the welfare of members with access to healthcare, then you would be looking at an outcome in real life where members of the savings groups sort of have some cover against malaria. And your intervention as an innovator would involve you looking at how technology can be used to improve or provide medical insurance for group members. Now, I'm not saying that this is what you should do, but I'm saying look in your country context and see if there are issues that can be addressed through the challenge that you are going to, through the innovation that you are going to create. Now, to round up this webinar, I'm quickly going to run through some major takeaways. I think I've covered what informal savings groups are. And again, these are social organizations formed by community members for a specific purpose. And there are two main models of savings groups, which are rotating savings and credit associations, and also accumulated savings and credit associations. Now, in terms of the benefits, these groups provide social capital to their members, besides them providing credit and also providing a way to save. And the inefficiencies are around record keeping. And this challenge is about developing a platform for peer-to-peer savings, tracking and management of savings, as well as linking to external savings and credit, and finding ways in which other groups can actually access credit from these groups, and also linking to the real economy, where we're asking you to choose an intervention which you feel is applicable to your country that can be addressed through the application that you will create. Thank you for joining this webinar, and I'm looking forward to what you're going to come up with. Over to you, Dube, for some questions before we end the session.
Thank you very much, Petronella, for that great presentation. To all those who joined us while Petronella was presenting, welcome to the webinar. We have the Q&A functionality on Zoom. So we will open up for you to type in your question. So I can give you the next minute or two to push through as many questions as you can. I see a question have come through from Joyce Mary. And Joyce Mary is saying, are accumulated savings the same as village community banks? So I'll leave that to you, Petronella, to respond while we get more questions. Oh, Petronella, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Sorry, what was the question again?
So the question from Joyce is, are accumulated savings the same as village community banks?
Yeah, what happens with these savings models is that they obviously have different ways in which they operate, and your accumulated savings would obviously have an accumulation. That means that the money is not immediately distributed, but rather it's the funds that are kept together, and then there's then giving out the money to whoever needs it, and then in the end having a sharing of the funds at the end of this. Now, by definition, I will have to check what the village community bank really means. But in terms of the models, these obviously vary from country to country, and I should be able to address that question better on Slack if that works for whoever posted it. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Patty, and I hope you are answered there, Joyce. And while we wait for more questions to come through, Petronella mentioned Slack, so we shall be sharing a Slack community link where all participants will be able to interact with all our experts in the duration of the competition. So look out for that one. We shall be sending it through via the emails that you've shared to us. And we've just received another question from Gerson. And the question is it possible to have access to more data that support the fundamentals of Petronella's presentations? Patty, I hope you got that question.
Yes, I got it. In terms of the data, say you want to look at the statistics of the different countries, you could go to i2ifacility.org, and if you go to the data portal, there is a function where you can actually look at the different strands. You can see the savings strands for the country that you're interested in, and it will be able to give you the number of people that are saving informally, those that are saving at a formal institution, as well as those that are banked. So in terms of the figures, you can get that on the I2I facility data portal, which again you can get at i2ifacility.org. And I'm not sure if the person who posed the question can be really specific on what data they want so that I can maybe answer them better.
Sure, thanks, Patty. Gerson, if you would like to do a follow-up on that based on Patty's question to say can bring more specific requests. But I think, I hope for now you've been answered. So we just have about 5 or so minutes left before the end of our webinar, but we're still open to more questions, and Petronella is there to answer. Thank you, Carlos. I see a question has come through. The second question is very nice. Couldn't get the sources we could consult. So can we get sources, and can those sources be shared via email? This is the question that has come through from Carlos. So any key sources that we can share, Petronella?
Yes, I can share in the presentation itself, right at the bottom, I do have links to some sources of the material which you can refer to. So Dumi, I'm sure you can share the presentation. And if there is any specific request for a source or for a specific data set, I think that can also come through and we can see how we can address it.
Thank you. Yes, and indeed, we shall be posting the presentation and the link to the webinar on the website, sadacinnovation.org. So we've got another question that came through from Joyce. And the question is, can you assist on a minimum of 3 technologies apart from apps to assist on savings? So which are the technologies? So Patty, here's another question from Joyce.
Sorry, what was that?
The question is, can you assist on a minimum of 3 technologies apart from the apps? And I'd like to believe that this is mobile apps that can assist on savings. So which are the technologies that can be used apart from mobile apps?
Well, in my mind, it would be mobile apps of some sort. But it would be great to see what recommendations the applications would put through. Are you still there, Dube?
Yes, I'm still there. Thank you for that. So I hope Joyce is answered. And I think also it will be quite interesting just to add on to that for each of you participants to consider the context of the technologies that could be relevant for your specific countries. So definitely doing that additional layer of research for what customers would find useful and relevant will definitely further inform options for better technologies to use. We are still open for more. Just to emphasize that the webinar recording will be uploaded on the website, and with that in mind, we will be wrapping up our webinar for today. And thank you very much for joining us. And special thanks to Petronella, who was our speaker for the day and taking time to engage with us. I hope everyone who has enjoyed this engagement. And just remember to keep up to date with the hashtag SADC Innovation on our social media, primarily Twitter and LinkedIn, where we will be sharing updates regarding the competition. And also our website, www.sadcinnovation.org, will always have the most recent updates. So with this, I would like to thank each one of you for joining us. And thank you once again, Petronella. And we look forward to having you all engaging Petronella on the Slack channel link that we shall be sharing in due course. So this brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Dube.